We're now back with the panel. We're going to reflect a little bit on what Ian was talking about at the beginning, which is the kind of the embedded finance opportunity. We're also going to drill a little bit more into how we innovate at the level of the customer. How do we all know in principle where the innovation is taking us, but how do we actually activate that? How do we, what are the systems that we need to do? Where are the innovations? How do we orchestrate in a way that we can build viable businesses through embedded finance? So without that, let's start the panel. Great, welcome everybody. Good to see you. Can we get the names on the screen, if possible? There we go. I think. I think this is your third pattern. Yeah. We'll try and keep it. Yeah, I forgot that it's weird. Very good. Right. Welcome, everybody. Good to see you. And again, we'll come to you for questions during the session as well. So, please have something in mind when we come to you for questions, and stick your hand up, and we'll come to you as soon as we can. We've been hearing a lot about the last couple of days about how the market is maturing in this region. Fintech has clearly matured globally anyway, but there seems to be a kind of sense, an emerging sense, really, that technology is not the end product in this region anymore. It's more about thinking about it from an enabling point of view. What's your sense of how embedded finance is shaping in this region relative to the other markets that you're in?
Thanks, Andrew. So guys, for those of you who don't know, my name is Mohammed, also known as Mo. I'm lucky enough, I get to manage the fintech segment on behalf of Mastercard. So I sort of have a bird's eye view in terms of what's happening across the region. That's Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And I think from an embedded finance perspective, it's very important that, whether you're a fintech, whether you're a bank, or whatever customer-centric solution you have, it's important that you are where your customers are. And where are our customers today? On the mobile phone. So people have been saying this for the last 5 years. But if we just deep down or sort of take a deep dive into that, what we are seeing very much happening is a lot of people are sort of being confused between what is embedded finance and what is a super app. There is a distinct difference, right? The super app is basically a collection of everything, e-commerce, etc., whereas embedded finance basically gives you whatever you need at your fingertips. And one thing that we encourage from a Mastercard perspective is to ensure that we provide those capabilities and provide those tools to our partners so that they can create these seamless user experiences within their digital app so that they provide these capabilities to their customers. So much so that as Mastercard, we've pledged that by 2025, we would like to bring 1 billion people into the digital economy. In addition to the 1 billion people, we also want to bring 50 million SMEs into the digital economy, 50% of which, and that's 25 million, will be women SMEs. Now, how are we seeing this shape up in the region? I think that the MENA region is growing at a tremendous pace, and it's sort of becoming a catalyst for embedded finance. We have such big players in the industry, telcos, fintechs, banks, and when I say banks, I'm speaking about those digital banks that are providing those capabilities and having that stickiness that allows them to make sure that from a consumer perspective, they have consumers that are always eyeballing on their phone. So there's also another term I want to speak about. It's eyeballing. A lot of the banks, a lot of the fintechs have the strategy called eyeballing. Put as much information or put as much capabilities into your application so that you have as much eyeballs as possible from your consumers.
I will come into the kind of opportunities specifically later, but presumably, partnerships forms a big part of your desire, therefore, to be able to serve some of these new customers, these women or SMEs. How strategic is the level of partnerships for Mastercard in activating this embedded finance opportunity?
Sure. I think many people still see Mastercard as a card company, and that's incorrect. We used to be a card company. Card is still the bread and butter of our business. We've been around for over 50 years, and during this time, we've licensed through our franchise network close to 20,000 odd banks across 200 odd markets that we operate in. But as we evolve into a more AI-centric world, from a Mastercard perspective, our whole focus now is about being a payments network and it's a payment technology network. So really sitting in the center of having, where a transaction is happening, we want to sit in the center and we want to make sure that we touch the transaction in any shape, means, or form. In saying that, we also see ourselves as an API-centric company. We're not there yet, Andrew. I can assure you, we're still far from there. But what we want to do is we want to move forward with an API-first mindset where there's APIs available for any of the 2,000 odd products that we have that can be accessed by anybody. And usually software developers would go in, see, this is easy language to code to, this is a cool product, and get them to implement it as quickly as possible, be part of our sandbox. And that's how we're seeing partnerships differently. I mean, I'm a salesperson. I have a team of close
to... Doesn't show.
I have a team of close to 18, salespeople across the region. And they always tell me that, Mo, what's going to happen to us? If we're going this, because we're out there selling and making sure that, we get the partnerships in place. But if we're going through this API, mindset, what's going to happen to us? And I said, guys, if we don't do this, we could become a Kodak. We could become a BlackBerry. So that is why we are very, very keen to make sure that we go down this route and we become, and I mentioned this when I started speaking, that we need to be where our customers are, and banks, fintechs need to be where their customers are. And our customers are no longer those traditional banks. It's the tech companies, it's the fintechs, it's those people who embrace opportunities, have these amazing ideas, and create these fabulous products.
Thanks, Ab. I like that. Jay, let's turn to you, because you're looking at this region from from an outside perspective, having come from the UK. Open banking in the UK is a journey that's been around a long time already. Where I think it's past the decade mark already. There's quite a lot of frustration, I think, in the UK at the level of various parts of the market that the open banking hasn't really done much. The actual creating a viable business from open banking hasn't really materialized, and the banks are still very much owners of the customers. You've come from a large data technology background, Equifax and Amazon. What's the challenge there? What's the missing link, and why aren't the banks doing more, or why aren't there more viable businesses being built in this realm already in perhaps the world's most established open banking market?
Yeah, great question, Simon. And let me just pull my crystal ball out. But actually, but first, good morning. Well, actually, just good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jay Nair. I think that's a great question. So I'll answer it in two ways. One is just the open banking side of things, and the second is the hope everybody can hear me. Yeah. And the second is the embedded finance or embedded banking link. From an open banking perspective, you're absolutely right. When open banking came out in the UK all those years ago, there is still a question there as to whether it was a solution looking for a problem, or whether it actually was solving a problem that was live, that had a commercial impact, that had a customer impact. So we can safely argue at this point that it was a regulatory solution to the idea of banks not sharing data, rather than based on a massive demand from customers for something. That said, the use cases that have come out largely initially started with all the excitement around account information sharing or payments. But there is, if you look at what's happening, where the gems of data are, that's around the account data sharing, which is where a lot of the money is being made, right? And if you follow the money, you would say that banks and customers looking to engage in transactions but prepared to share their data allows players in the open banking ecosystem to really analyze and offer them much better services. Now, let me give you a use case. You are a customer going for a loan of some kind, or an auto loan or a mortgage loan to a bank. Typically, banks have, and with all due respect to all the banks here who will claim they are high in tech and data, yes, I agree with that. But I think most banks will use existing data sets, probably very old models, to make credit decisions for customers. And they will typically get data either from their own sources or from credit bureaus such as Equifax or Experian or TransUnion or others that exist in a market. And it is very hard for banks from an infrastructure perspective to change their banking models. So what happens is they will say, well, we'll decline customers based on the current models. But that's where open banking comes in, and we found that you could actually convert 80% more of the declined 20% by using data from open banking to enhance the quality of the mortgage application or lending application by having data on affordability particularly. So open banking is happening, but as you say, it's actually stabilizing. It is not growing in the UK as much as it is starting to grow in other places. But the fact of the matter also is that the core technology, the actual integrations, the API standards, they are so easy that anybody who is a licensed open banking services provider can simply plug into that API, and they don't have to create their own plumbing into many of the banks. So that's kind of the current state of open banking, and you got more than 5 to 6 million open banking transactions happening, every month now. So that's a great place to be.
Thanks for that. I think George, I think we'll come to you first because the data question is big, and then to you, Ahmed, on the also. But let's turn to you as a banker, the only banker on the panel. I think everybody says bankers and non-bankers say we all know the legacy problem. You're looking at data, from a climate finance, a sustainability perspective. What's the interplay between data, embedded finance, and climate goals for you? And how challenging is it, just reflecting on what Jay was saying there, how challenging is it for you around that whole data issue?
Thank you for having us. For those who don't know me, I'm Josh Hajj, Senior Manager Net Zero at Emirates MBD. So Emirates MBD, I'll talk about our experience because we really rely on data. So as COP28 is coming soon and the race to net zero is among all companies, Emirates MBD embarked on a journey where we really need to track our emissions. Tracking the emissions is all about data and having access to data. Without data, we're unable to track the emissions. And the more granular the data is, the more accurate are the emissions. And today, we're having a lot of fintechs coming to us with solutions where they are able to provide us with tools to analyze the data and track the data. We even partnered with Mastercard and other companies to track, for example, the data of purchases that are done on credit cards. Today, each transaction on a credit card has emissions. How can we track the emission of a transaction on a credit card? And here, embedded finance plays a big role because we will need, as banking sectors and card systems and financial solution providers and e-commerce platform to open the data among all of us. For example, I'll give you an example. If someone pays with his card $50 at Starbucks, he could be buying only coffee, which would have a certain amount of emissions. And he could be buying 10 muffins, which would have other emissions. And that's where Mastercard data with the platforms that are providing these purchases would work together to be able to analyze the purchases and then do the emission tracking. So this is the main component where data would come and play a big role. There are other elements of data that sustainable finance and the banking sector are looking at. I would give few headlines and then we will tackle them. So for example, carbon credit. Today, carbon credit is would be one of the most tradable assets in the near future, more than equity, more than debt capital markets. So carbon market will need to have also a data component so we can track how the carbon credit is being sourced, generated, and this also fintechs will have to play a big role in tracking this. And there are other topics that plays a big role in driving sustainability in the financial sector and across all the economy.
And just how close do you think we are to kind of activating the consumer opportunity at the level of climate, net zero? So tracking carbon emissions on purchases, yes, but that's great in the sense of customers understanding.
Yeah. So once we start tracking correctly our customers' carbon emissions, because the largest component of the emission of the banking sector are their financing activities, which is related to our customers. So once we start tracking correctly our finance emissions and our customers' emissions, we'd be able to provide incentives to our customers the way airline companies provide them miles or something like that. We'd be able to provide them with incentives so they can change their consumption behavior to a more sustainable consumption. So instead of buying regular products, you can buy more organic. Instead of buying imported vegetables, you can buy local grown vegetables. So there is a drive to change. When we start analyzing correctly the data, we'll be able to provide incentives because it will be a win-win situation for both of us. The incentive would reduce the emissions of our customers, and we indirectly would have a reduction in our emissions.
Thanks for that, George. Ahmed, let's turn to you. I'm not going to ask you about net zero, but I'm going to ask you, again about the data question. How are you getting the data that you need to, win customers? We were hearing from Ian, HSBC, at the beginning. From their perspective, they're thinking about embedded finance as a more cost-effective distribution channel. You presumably think about it in that way, in the sense of that would be good to partner with those bigger institutions. But how are you getting the data that you need to then be able to win users and create products for customers?
Okay. Thanks, Simon. Thanks, everybody. First, my name is Ahmed Saber. I'm the CTO of Forus Finance. It's a Saudi-based fintech company with a mission to facilitate financing and access to SMEs through crowdfunding and some other different fintech products. Mainly without embedded finance, I wouldn't be here. Okay, it's all about what the SMEs finance is. It's not an alternative to the banks. It's something complement the banks. It's a complement the ecosystem. It's based mainly on how fast we can produce how fast we can process the underwriting process. Okay, it's mainly through the embedded finance. It's mainly through different products that rely on a fintech ecosystem that exists in the region. Okay, either through a KYC and ML functions, connecting to credit bureaus and the banks, open banks, to get the data and get, spending behavior. Okay, I'll complement something related to the climate change. We can see, we can analyze every company data to see their carbon footprint and spending. Okay, if they have like special support, special funding, the government, okay, for this sector, we can collaborate with them. Saudi Arabia, for example, have a target to reach a net zero by 2060, and this is through financing. We can support this by enable a special, special rates, special finance to the SMEs that have a lowest carbon footprint. Other side is related to the KYC part, or related to the data that we are getting from the open banking. we almost can actually automate everything and we have like, let's say, a 90% an automated underwriting process. Yet, okay, there's a golden opportunity, as my colleague just mentioned in the previous session, golden opportunity for regulator, golden opportunity for the governments, golden opportunity even for the fintech companies to collaborate together, to partner together, just to connect the puzzle and build a very mature ecosystem. For me, as Forus, as I just mentioned, like 90% of our processes and our everything related to the product is mainly built over the concept of embedded finance.
And do you think, I mean, we've heard a lot about the sort of contrast between, increasingly, it's very interesting just to kind of, reflect back over the years. Over the years, the fintech and financial service marketplace has changed dramatically. We no longer talk of just customers. We also talk about users. I think even Ian, you were talking about users as much as you were talking about customers. That's very much an internet age thing, isn't it? Where we think about, we don't necessarily need to make money out of every user. It's about how we convert users into customers. How do you come at it? Do you come at your business from a perspective of winning only customers, or do you think more holistically about users that you then convert as you onboard them?
Actually, we as a business of crowdfunding, okay, simply we are getting fund from individual investor. It's very easy through a partnership with Mastercard. I can issue a card for them. They can monetize their wallets. Okay, they can use it. So I'm converting the end customer to a new revenue stream, either for me and for the bank and for the Mastercard or any other card provider. Okay, I'm building a stickiness about between the customer and between the product and provider and all the chain of providers in the product. So there is an opportunity, always an opportunity. You can see most of the fintech startups now in the region, okay, trying to be most of the startups trying to be a fintech startups, trying to provide a financial service, okay? Yes, there is, I see from product and technical perspective, there is an issue in the having, let's say, a visible value proposition for each startup to avoid like everybody's playing in the same area, everybody's providing the same products, yet there's a huge opportunity in the market to convert all the end users to a profitable customer for all fintech startups, and all the players are getting actually benefit from this. The fintech is getting benefits from this. The banks, the end customers. I'll give you an example related to Saudi, since we are working in Saudi. There is a mission to allow around 550 startup by 2030, and this will contribute by $1.2 billion in the GDP. Now we have 150. How we will find more 300? Okay, this is through an embedded finance, through a new layer, a new wave of product and services that built on the infrastructure of banks and infrastructure of finance we have in the region.
Thank you for that. Did you want to come in on that or no?
No, it's actually one of the things I did want to add. This is great because the SME financing bit that you were talking about is absolutely a right space for embedded banking. But I just wanted to, I guess, expand the definition of embedded banking because financial services is the primary and the biggest use case for embedded banking. That's why I call it embedded banking, I guess. But the opportunities outside financial services are pretty significant. And that's where you're starting to see momentum because ultimately embedded finance is about native customer journeys wherever they are. They could be in a retail environment, they could be in a fashion environment, they could be in a health environment, right? Where can you embed a financial journey in somebody's health environment? So I'm going to my doctor to get a treatment, but I have a financial solution at the clinic as opposed to getting a loan for a treatment or whatever it is. Bad example, but I think that's what it is. I'm driving in my car and I want to buy something on the phone, on the pause. And that requires technology advances like edge computing to be able to get the data in your car as opposed to send it to some cloud server. But those are really where I think outside of financial services, giant opportunities in embedded finance.
I couldn't agree. Sorry. Then we're going to go some questions from the audience. But yes, go ahead.
But I just got excited when you said because I can see it's a journey, right? Embedded finance moves towards, the data capturing and then utilizing that data, which reminds me, in 2016, or was it 2017, Mastercard CEO visited Saudi Arabia, and he sat with the royal family, and he said, you know what, guys, data is going to be the new oil. And I thought, what is this guy? I mean, this was 2017. What did I know then? But he knew it, right? And I obviously, being in the position that we are in, he was able to see it. And, when I look back today, with all these user journeys, the data that you collect becomes so rich from a sustainability perspective, from a lending perspective. And I guess where I'm going with this is that the more data you have access to, if you use it in a responsible manner, you can enable digital, you can enable financial inclusion, and really change the lives and make a difference and create these personalized experiences as well for consumers and SMEs on a day-to-day basis.
Thanks for that. I want to come, there's another question I have for you, but let's just try and engage the audience a little bit. Do we have any questions from the floor? If not, we'll come back to you at the end, but if you do have any questions, please raise your hand. Nope, nobody. Partnerships. Let's talk a little bit about partnerships. We've got sort of buyers of partnerships, yourself, George, and Mohammed here, and we've also got suppliers of partnerships, from the tech side of things. Where are you looking? You were talking about the partnership with Mastercard, George. Where are you looking for opportunities from not just partnerships like with Mastercard, but with other innovators in the space? And then we'll come to you, Mohammed, for the same question.
The net zero journey is a very complex one, and the UAE announced So the UAE announced that we will need to reduce our emissions by 43% by 2030 to keep the path to 1.5 degrees according to the Paris Agreement. There is no way this number can be reached without technology. And here the floor is extremely open to all the fintechs and the startups and the youngsters to come up with ideas on how we can reduce the emissions. We will really need any technology to help us reduce the emissions. And here is the challenge. We will need financing for these technologies. The banking sector alone won't be able to provide financing for these technologies because they are risky. There might be losses. So here comes the VCs who will be able to provide some financing and to provide the right mentorship for these young startups. We as financial services are looking at startups and fintechs to help us on this journey. I mentioned some startups that are working on analyzing the emissions of our customers based on the purchases. We have another startup that is, for example, we at Emirates MBD partners with Ergovan. It's a Turkish startup that creates carbon credit in the Turkish market. So we are keen to have really new startups and fintechs partnering with us so we can reduce our emissions and engage in ESG. At Emirates MBD also we launched a few weeks ago Sustain Tech. It's an accelerator where we were scouting for fintechs to help us with that have the right solution that would embed it in our GHG emission tracking and our sustainability journey at Emirates MBD. So the market is really growing, is booming. We are having every day almost new people coming with an idea of a startup that this would allow you to track your emissions, reduce your emission, or provide the adequate sustainable finance to the adequate clients.
Thanks for that, George. Mo, the same sort of question to you, really. The kind of the role of partnerships here. What are you looking for in terms of partners in this region and across in Africa where you're also working? And I guess how do you pick those that are kind of more suited to the Mastercard realm?
Partnerships. I can go on forever when it comes to partnerships.
We don't have forever. You've got 4 or 5 minutes. I'll give you.
Sure. Thanks. I'll make this quick. I think we obviously look for like-minded partners. So, like I mentioned, in my space, I'm fortunate enough to work with fintechs on a day-to-day basis. And I'll be honest with you, the fintechs that I see, some of them come to us and like, we're going to be the next unicorn. We're going to take over the banks because the banks got it wrong. This one's got it wrong. That one's got it wrong. We have the best idea. And mind you, all the ideas are great. But there's execution that also plays a very important part. Sustainability also is very important. I think a fintech that can sustain themselves, especially in times that we're in right now, is crucially important. And I think that's just the mindset that we look for. We, as Mastercard, have tons of products and services. So we try and embed those products and services into the tech stacks of these fintech partners that they can either resell or they can make use of in their tech stack. Most importantly, from a sustainability perspective, we obviously take it very seriously as active citizens need to. And it's all about the 3 Ps, right? People, prosperity, and planet. From a people perspective, we make sure that there's inclusion, there's diversity, and most importantly, equity. Secondly, from a prosperity perspective, it goes, to the heart of what we do. Financial and digital inclusion for both consumers as well as SMEs. And then lastly, from a planet perspective, right, it's making sure that we have environmentally friendly solutions. As Mastercard, we have a very low footprint because we don't produce products direct to consumers, but we make sure that we provide those tools towards our partners so that they can calculate their carbon footprints. We have solutions like Priceless Planet, etc., that gives back, towards the economy. And those are the things that, we typically look for in our partnership mindset approach.
I think you exactly said it there. There's execution matters, and I suppose at the level of that plays both ways, doesn't it? Banks talk a great game, and rightly so. They're concerned about the changing, shifting competitive landscape. I'm going to ask both of you the same question actually, which is, what should as an innovation, a data technology company, what do you look for in the sense of sounding out whether a bank or more traditional finance partner is the right partner for you?
As I mentioned, partnerships for us is what bring the product. Okay, it's actually what we did is we connect the puzzles and voila, we have a product. Okay, without having these solid partnerships and mature partnerships, we've never have done like such a crowdfunding platform.
But what are some of the challenges of working with some of the partners that you've had? I mean, what have you learned over the
Actually,
experience?
challenges is not partner challenges. Is for us from the technical perspective. Okay, it's a more of regulatory changes. Okay, when you come to depth of integration and exchanging the data and compliance and this stuff. Okay, it's a more of regulatory changes. Okay, and one of the changes we are facing with this is, let's say, we need a more updated frameworks, okay, a more modern frameworks that actually fit the current situation, the current needs, okay, we have in the market. But for me, okay, we built the product, as I mentioned, we built the product over different partners, okay, and having this good relation with the partners allow us to not just buy a service or just giving them a money for a service. No, we are innovating together. We are working together to build the ecosystem, to build a mature ecosystem, okay, for not just crowdfunding, but all the fintech products. So if you dig deep in most successful fintech in the market, you will find that it's a small pieces of partnerships connected together to build the end consumer product.
Do some of those partnerships, or have some of those partners helped you? Have some of those partners helped you in navigate the regulatory landscape in some cases, or has it been very much you having to kind of identify the problem and then find and go and fix the solution?
Yes, we actually collaborate together in this, discovering together, and actually sometimes we sit with the regulator and talk about actually what we need to change and what. And we go with the banks and said, there isn't always communication with all the players in this area, especially in the Middle East. There is like a really need and actually a vision, okay, with the regulators and banks to apply this open framework and to apply open banking and to enhance and push actually the business of embedded finance. So yes, we are always working together to find alternative solutions, to work to deal with the regulator, okay, to allow us to, let's say, get more data and like working beyond the restriction they made. That's why we feel positive about the market. We feel there's a golden opportunity in the market, especially like everybody's listening and everybody's collaborating with us.
Jay, from your kind of big tech experience, any advice for fintechs that are trying to partner with more traditional institutions, whether it's corporates or finance? What should they look out for as they embark on that journey?
Yeah, it's I think the idea of partnerships from an embedded finance perspective is, I would argue, slightly different. When you look at the ecosystem of embedded finance, for a fintech like Forus, I think the idea of partnering is about, where are you getting the deep API connections? Who are the financial lenders who are providing you that data, that service? Is it Mastercard? Is it the banks? When you look at it from a bank's perspective, though, that needs to change a little bit because unlike traditional partnerships which is one-to-one and you sign agreements and you do commercial deals, you are looking at an environment where banks have to almost change their front end to be openly pluggable to everyone, right? Mastercard's done a great job with creating their API interfaces, and banks are on that journey. And I think that's the change in partnership. So from a bank's perspective, it's not about partnering with someone, it's about partnering with everyone who wants to use their services, which are openly available and pluggable. Likewise, from a financial services perspective, you've got the range of services available, whether it is an ESG-based service, or is it a lending-based service, or is it another type of service. If you're a travel company wanting to offer a loan to a customer, or you are a retail player wanting to offer credit finance. So I think that's the change in partnerships, and that's also a organizational change, it's a mindset change, but it's largely also a tech challenge, how easy it is to integrate into new services that you want to provide in the front end.
Thanks for that. Do we have any questions from the floor? Everyone's very timid this morning. No, nobody. We have somebody. Yep.
Hi.
Hi there. Yep. Please say your company name if possible.
Hi, my name is Wafa, and I'm a software engineer at a fintech company, and its name is Tarabut. And as a software engineer, I'm speaking from my perspective. We're always limited by the regulations, the not up-to-date regulations in the Middle East compared to Europe. So I just want to understand the dynamic of the role of fintechs and banks in influencing the shaping of regulations in the Middle East. How does that look like? As a software engineer, all I hear is, oh, we have a new regulation, let's implement it. But I'm really interested to see what happens on that side. How do these regulations shape?
Who wants to have a crack at that? Maybe as
let me
a Saudi,
start.
yes.
You're from Tarabut Gateway? Okay. So mainly we have, let's say, ambitions, we have dreams, we have needs to get data, okay, to apply new, let's say, development techniques, whatever, managed by the regulator, okay? There is always a conversation between us and regulator, not just from auditor perspective, from regulator perspective, but they listen to us. They listen to suggestions from us and from everyone in fintech ecosystem. And based on that, they take this suggestion as a share in rebuilding and re-identifying the framework. If things actually compliant, if things secured, and stuff like this. So keep talking with the regulator, okay, is a way for us to get, and let's not say an exception, but let's say a regulator 0.2, okay? So for us, Tarabut and other platforms actually should collaborate together, okay, and work with the regulator to identify what we need, because how the regulator will get to know what they should provide and how they should provide. It's actually a feedback from the startups, feedback from the company, and feedback from the banks, and feedback from all the ecosystem. Okay, and they build the regulation over this. So what I recommend, or what I highly recommend for all startups, is collaborate together. Okay, and drive this positive conversation with the regulator in order to get what we see it's blocked now, what we see is restricted now, to be available for us.
I mean, Mohammed, that's part of your kind of sell to fintechs, isn't it? I mean, you can kind of help. You're in multiple markets. You're at scale. The regulator trusts you because you're Mastercard. Presumably that's part of your kind of bid to fintechs that want to engage, or possibly looking at you as a partner or a distribution channel. No?
Yeah, I mean, I wish we had the power to enable regulation. Fintechs often tell us, but you Mastercard, can't we do this? And from a Mastercard perspective, in every market that we operate, we have to adhere to the local laws and the local rules and so on. And what we do very well is we work closely with members of our franchise networks, the banks, the fintechs, and we lobby with the respective central banks to try and show good use cases. So, for example, if we're trying to implement an open banking capability, which we're currently at the moment doing in one of the African markets right now, we show the success of how it works in other markets. And we show this and we lobby. It's a means of lobbying. And we say that, if you would consider this, this is what you would do, and this is how it would influence your market, grow the GDP, etc. And it's always about showing that benefit to the powers that be, so that when they see this, they're able to then, implement it as quickly as possible.
I mean, I'd like to get your take on it, George, also, but, because of the nature of climate change, and then we'll take, I think there's one more question. Tell us a little bit about, climate change, climate finance. I mean, that really is very heavily regulatory dependent, isn't it? Because you want to go where the customer is, but you also need to kind of, you need the stick in a way. What does that look like, in terms of your interaction with regulators?
We are flooded with tons of regulations on a daily basis. So, European regulations, UAE regulations, and each regulation is having not only a regional impact, but sometimes a global impact. CSRD, for example, which is the EU regulations, is almost impacting 60,000 companies across the world, even those who are not present, who don't have a presence in Europe. So we, as a bank at Emirates MBD, are trying to lobbying with the central bank, the Minister of Climate Change, to have the right regulation without blocking the business. And here is also having partnership with the right fintechs and the right other players in the ecosystem will allow us to have a better lobbying with the regulator.
A collaborative effort, I guess. I think there was one more question. There's one more, and two more, and then I think we're done. Good. Please say your name and company.
Hi, my name is Danny, and I'm the founder of Bankiom. My question actually is for George, because he mentioned something about the climate change and the goal for the government to reduce climate change by 43% by the year 2030, which is good and amazing. And he mentioned also that we need to rely on startups and the young people, their innovation, to be able to fix this, because technology is the way to go. And he mentioned also that this takes funding, but he lost me when he said, we can't do it because there are losses, let the VCs take care of it. And I think this is where the problem is.
You understand me
the
wrong?
gap, yes.
It's not that we cannot do it. We will be doing it, but we can't do it alone as a financial sector, because it's not our role only to finance startups, and that's why there are VCs and private equities who are taking this risk. Their investors are ready to take the risk of these startups. We, as a financial institution heavily regulated, we cannot take this risk of financing all the startups and providing all the financing required. We are financing our SMEs, our retail customers, and our corporate bankers. We are providing access to market to all the high net worth people, and we are putting in, connecting everyone so that we can enable the financing. providing a loan, the financing to mitigate climate change won't be with only financial institution. It has to be a collective effort of all the players in the market. Otherwise, we won't reach it.
Collective effort, yes, definitely. But you have to take the lead on it. You're Emirates NBD,
We are
the biggest
taking the
bank.
lead.
How
We
many
are-
startups did you fund in the
I guess you
innovation
weren't
space
here
for
when-
climate change?
You weren't here when I said that we launched an accelerator 3 weeks ago where we were scouting for startups who would provide us with the accurate solution to track our emissions, and for any fintech that would provide us with insights on how to reduce our emissions. So we are working on it. It's not our role. We do not have the expertise. Otherwise would be a venture capital. We're a bank.
No, this
we
is exactly my point. Emirates NBD needs to have a cultural change to be able to provide this. Yes, you need
I'll
to
bring you
lobby
to
the-
I'll bring you to the General Assembly so you can talk to our shareholders.
Yes, I think we take this off stage. We're kind of running out of time. And let's just quickly go around the panel for a kind of closing statement, I suppose. 1 year from now, I mean, embedded finance is still very much a kind of big thing in this market, but also other markets too. Where what can you expect in the year ahead?
I think somebody spoke about a crystal ball earlier, but I'll be very quick. One word, and I think we'll see a lot of this going forward, and there is fintegration. I think we'll see a lot of fintegration happening where partnerships will happen between fintechs to find the solves and make sure that that drives financial and digital inclusion in the future.
Nice one. I like that. Jay, same to you.
So, I'm not going to talk about all the tech stuff that's going to happen, but I think the one thing that my crystal ball tells me is that for customers, it's going to be great because you're going to get have a lot more choices in a lot more areas of services that are going to keep opening up, whether it is in lending, whether it is in finance, whether it is in automotive, whether it is in healthcare. And I think that's the real value of the
Do
journey.
you have a view on any of those sort of companies that do it better already or are likely to get it right?
Well, look, I think that, yes, I think, the biggest use cases are in areas like buy now, pay later, for example. There's a lot happening in that space. So those companies are likely to do that better. You are looking at embedded payment technologies, people like the acquirers, people like Stripe, or people like the local players like Magnati and others. There is a lot that is going to happen in that space. I think healthcare and automotive is a less so, but I've seen a lot more Teslas on the road here than I saw last time. And I think those are the ones that are going to drive some of the innovation in this space.
Thank you very much. Ahmed, where will we see you in a year's time? What's on the cards?
I second Mo in partnerships actually will result a lot of new startups. I believe we are witnessing the new wave of startups in Middle East. Okay, and during the coming years, we will notice a lot of new services, a lot of new products actually integrated in all the types of products and technologies. And I'm sure that with the support of all the players in the ecosystem, we'll be able to deliver the next wave, the reality of the next technology and next customer-centric products in the fintech ecosystem.
George, I guess the final word to you. It's a big year, 2023, isn't it? COP28 is here. Where will we see Emirates NBD along the sort of the transition road?
I would say 2023 is the starting year of a new Middle East where it will take the lead on many fronts, mainly climate change. UAE will take the lead on the climate change journey, will take the lead on the economic growth globally. We see that Saudi Arabia, UAE, and other countries are really leading in terms of economic growth. There is a lot of potential in the region, a lot of good ideas, new young people that have great ideas that would be able to enable and implement their ideas in this new ecosystem to drive the change globally.
Wonderful. Please give our panel a warm thanks. Wonderful. We'll take a photograph, and then we're straight into a next session, a panel session, looking more deeply into the level of partnerships between traditional and innovation players across embedded finance. Thanks very much. We'll see you back in a second.